And for more, let's go to Venezuela's capital. Vil Gunson is Andes Project Senior Analyst at International Crisis Group. Thank you for speaking with us here on France 24.
Thank you very much.
First of all, can you confirm that Sunday, walking around the streets of Caracas, was there a big groundswell of interest, or did nobody care?
It looked like a normal Sunday, really, in Caracas, and all independent sources showed that the polling stations were, if not completely empty, then certainly devoid of large queues of voters. The only queues that I saw, in fact, were of uniformed soldiers who obviously were there under orders. Public employees were also instructed to turn out and vote, and their names were ticked off on lists. So, I mean, I think the figures that the government is giving are really not credible. The government is talking about 10.4 plus million voters, and they were pretty invisible to most independent observers.
50% of the electorate is what they're claiming.
That's right. Actually, even more than 50%, because since so many Venezuelans are now abroad, due to the economic crisis primarily, about 4 million people on that register are outside the country and effectively unable to vote.
So what was it all about, this referendum? Was it about Guyana? Was it about whipping support ahead of elections that are due to take place next year?
I think mostly the latter. I don't think this is really about a serious claim or a serious attempt to recover, as the Venezuelans would say, the Essequibo region. I think it has more to do with internal politics. This is a very unpopular president who faces a difficult election campaign next year. He was seeking to wrap himself in the flag. He was seeking to build up patriotic fervor in the hope that that would give something of a boost to his campaign. And I think, despite the figures that the government is presenting, the reality is that it did exactly the reverse. It showed that he's not capable of bringing out the vote, and so that really leaves a big question mark over what the government does next.
Yeah, and this dispute over the Essequibo River, we were wondering last week as well. This was a non-issue until just a couple of years ago. Why is it also have to do with the fact that there's been oil discovered offshore?
Well, the oil raises the stakes. Guyana is now the fastest growing country in the world. It's on track very soon to overtake Venezuela, which of course used to be a major oil power and still has vast reserves of oil. Guyana is going to overtake them in production and export terms. The Guyanese per capita are going to become extremely rich. And meanwhile, of course, Venezuela is in severe economic difficulties. But I think we have to go back a little bit because, in historical terms, just to realize why the issue was in abeyance. It's always been kind of an article of faith, certainly for the last few decades, on the part of Venezuelans, that the Essequibo belonged to them. But under Hugo Chavez and his then foreign minister, Nicolás Maduro, who is now the president, the issue was shelved really because that it was something that came between Venezuela and countries that it wanted to influence in the Caribbean region in particular and in the non-aligned movement. So Chavez put it on the back burner, and it's only now that it's become, let's say, a useful issue to raise for the Venezuelan government.
There's another party in all of this, another neighbor, Brazil. What position are they taking?
Well, the Brazilians have their own interests in Guyana. Guyana for them is a key outlet potentially to the Atlantic. It's their northern neighbor. They've been trying to calm things down. President Lula himself has appeared a little exasperated in the last couple of days with his counterpart Maduro, even though they're kind of ideological allies. Brazil would like to see the issue go away. They certainly don't want to see Venezuela continuing to whip up this nationalist fervor and possibly risking some kind of a military clash with Guyana.
Yeah, and on that score, have we heard from Guyana as a former British colony? Have we heard from the Commonwealth, for instance?
The Commonwealth is totally behind Guyana. In fact, almost the whole world is totally behind Guyana, regardless of what the legal position is, whether what the International Court of Justice will eventually determine. Everybody, that there is almost nobody, even Venezuela's closest allies like Cuba, are on the side of Guyana. So I think that the benefits for the Venezuelan government of going down this road of confrontation with Guyana are pretty hard to see. Certainly, I think if they were to attempt anything in terms of a border incursion, there would be an immediate and very severe reaction from the international community in general, and from some of their key allies in particular. The Chinese, for example, another key ally of Maduro, have interests themselves in Guyanese oil.
One final question for you, Phil Gunson. This is a remote area we're talking about for the most part, even though it's 2/3 of Guyana's territory. Just how remote?
But you can get there. I've been there. I mean, when I went a few years back, you really had to go by river. The Brazilians have been building a road through the Essequibo to reach the Atlantic. So I think it's a little bit more accessible now than it was then. But a large part of this territory is impenetrable, pristine jungle. Some of it's savanna. Some of it's the coastal strip. Very rich, of course, in mineral resources and in timber. But it's very underpopulated, and it's not it's not an easy place to get to, but they are trying to build up ecotourism.
I want to thank you so much, Phil Gunson, for joining us from Caracas.
Thank you very much.